Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight. National exams declared a success despite low outcomes. A rough start to the new year for some Atlantis employees. Plus, a busy night for police as 3 men are shot and killed. Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina Dragovich. Topping news tonight, Education Minister Jeffrey Lloyd defending the 2020 national examination results, declaring the process a resounding success. This despite the fact that fewer students took the exams and those who did sit the exam did worse. Jasmine Brown reports.
As he pointed to the challenges that students and teachers faced last year, Education Minister Jeff Lloyd argued that the grading scale should be used as a measurement of positive achievement and not a pass-fail.
This past December, the results of the national exams were released. And I declare unequivocally that the entire examination exercise was a success. It was worth the financial, emotional, mental, physical, and psychological costs. It was a remarkable accomplishment that has clearly disappointed a fair number of naysayers.
When pressed on their assessment of the exams being a success, Assistant Director of Education Evelyn Sawyer said considering what students went through in 2020, it was remarkable that they were able to sit the exam.
And so we really do not need to look at what, the grades that the children got, but we have to look at the resilience of our children and what they were able to accomplish, and this indicates that it was a success.
Sawyer added that people tend to concentrate on the students who performed poorly, adding that the decrease is slight.
When you consider the number of candidates who got grades A through D, there's very little difference between the percentages for the last 5 years.
The results show that only 6% or 365 of the 6,073 students who sat the BGCSE in 2020 received at least a C grade in 5 or more subjects. That's compared to the 11.7% or 760 of the 6,454 students who did the same in 2019. But the minister argued that this represents just 6% of the overall candidature. Still, he said all students should be commended.
Across the education system, in both independent and government schools, students achieve grades ranging from A to G, all markers of positive achievement.
The education minister also pointed to improvements in multiple subjects, including auto mechanics, biology, bookkeeping and accounts, chemistry, and clothing construction. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Well, just a month after they returned to work, some Atlantis employees have been furloughed again. The resort on Paradise Island cited low occupancy, among other factors, for the decision. Now the hotel union president says a trade dispute is being filed. Kyle Joaquin has that.
So when you come to me on the roll call and say, next week you ain't get no job or you're going home and we ain't know when you're coming back, that's a problem.
Hotel Catering and Allied Workers Union President Darren Wood says the union was given little to no details like how many employees are being furloughed or even for how long. But in a statement, the resort said Atlantis Paradise Island is not closing. The resort is experiencing lower occupancy levels for January, attributed to several compounding factors, such as the lack of adequate airlift and the recent surge of COVID-19 in key markets. As a result, team members in several divisions are on temporary furlough for a few weeks. Atlantis gave no numbers, but Our News understands they include employees from several food and beverage outlets, including Carmine's, outlets at the Cove Pool, as well as several others at the water park. The statement continued. It is also not unusual for the resort to adjust staffing needs according to occupancy levels. Both team members and the union have been notified of this decision. Atlantis remains extremely optimistic about its February and March bookings and looks forward to the Cove reopening on February 11th. But Wood says things aren't supposed to move that fast with little notice of furlough.
They're supposed to work reduced days first. If the occupancy drop, then you move to reduced days, right? If it continues, then they go to week on, week off. If that continues, then you go to furlough. You know what people are saying? Well, what's the difference? It's the same thing. You still get end up there. Yeah, you're going to end up there, but you will end up there with the employees getting there with some dignity.
Those employees just returned to work last month after being furloughed for nearly 9 months. It was a happy moment for them walking back in the building. However, it turned out to be short-lived.
Our whole industry is dictated by occupancy. Remember that. All right? It's driven by occupancy. So when our people go to work at certain times of the year, they know what to expect. So now you open up. You said this is you're back to work now. This is what's going to happen. Now you come back and say I must go back home. Mentally, I think that's mental cruelty.
When Atlantis execs welcomed employees back to work for day one of its reopening on December 10th, Atlantis President Audrey Oswald shared concern over the need for more airlift to and from the Bahamas.
December's turning out to be better than we originally forecasted. The one thing holding us back a little is airlift. We're still struggling with airlift, and we hope that our partners that have regular service into Nassau, Paradise Island will step out and take the risk that Atlantis has.
For Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
In other news, 2021 off to a violent start as 3 men were shot and killed in 3 separate incidents during an 8-hour period. According to police, the matters are not related. Bethany McDermott reports.
It was a busy night for police in New Providence as 3 separate shooting incidents claimed the lives of 3 men. The latest, police say, occurred shortly before 4 a.m. Monday on Gilbert Street, Kennedy Subdivision. Police say they found a man's body lying on the ground. Pearl McKinney Stubbs, a resident of the area for more than 50 years, said the gunshots woke her up.
This kind of thing wasn't happening. This was a very quiet neighborhood. Very quiet. You could have sleep out, you let your door sleep open. You know, but just recently, so much different people moving into the neighborhood and causing all these things to happen.
And how does that make you feel, I guess, being alone?
Not feeling good. I mean, I can't feel good about it because I have kids.
Hours earlier, police were called to White's Addition after receiving reports of a shooting incident in that area. Police press liaison ASP Audley Peters said the incident took place shortly before 10 p.m. Sunday.
On the officer's arrival, they met the body of a male lying slouched in a vehicle with apparent gunshot wounds.
Now, hours before then, sometime after 8 p.m. Sunday night, another murder took place, rocking the Pinewood Gardens community and claiming the life of a male. Resident Joseph Roll says it seems incidents like these are becoming a bit too common.
Sometimes you can't come out of your house to sit on the porch because being afraid of being attacked or being shot at.
And you have the whole neighborhood in a dilemma right now because you don't know. You can't sit out near your yard because if you sit out there, you hear pow, you gotta run.
According to Roll, he heard around 5 shots that night. Police say the incident occurred at the intersection of Willow Tree Street and Sappadilla Boulevard.
The officers responded, and on their arrival, they found the body of a male lying in a van, white van that is, with apparent gunshot wounds. Details are sketchy at this time. We're following some leads.
Police do not believe any of these matters are related. According to Our News records, this is the 5th murder for 2021. 10 people were murdered in the Bahamas within a 6-day period. In addition to these murders, police say 6 men were murdered on New Providence between December 30th and New Year's Day. It comes as the National Security Minister announced a 21% decrease in murders in 2020. 74 people were murdered in 2020 compared to 2019 when 94 were murdered. Reporting for Our News, I'm Bethany McDermott.
Well, 27-year-old Barry Rashawn Swain Jr. of Murphytown, Abaco was charged with manslaughter in connection with the December 26th murder of Angelita Pritchard. Police discovered Pritchard's body with visible injuries to the face in her Crown Haven home after an altercation with a man. Swain was not required to enter a plea. He returns to court on March 3rd and was remanded to prison. And the family of a 62-year-old physical education teacher who was found dead at Stapleton School on New Year's Day, remembering him as an active man who loved his job. Jared Higgs has that.
Family members say the man who was found with gunshot wounds in a classroom at Stapleton School is 62-year-old Andrew Valdez, a PE teacher at the school.
Working with the special needs children, that was like a love to him.
According to police, Valdez was found lying in a pool of blood shortly after 1 p.m. His death was the first recorded homicide of 2021.
We are sad, but we're not sad without hope because, you know, this is not our home. We're just sojourning, so you just have to be ready.
Valdez was an avid sportsman ever since he was young. He went to Cuba to run track and even got a college scholarship in California. Our News spoke to Valdez's relatives at the home he shared with his 82-year-old mother on Robinson Road. His sister, Carol Roll, says he had 6 adult children.
He's the father of 5 girls. 1 boy. He pretty homeschooled them. They're brilliant girls. So when he came to Nassau to live, he got a job he was in Long Island working. And then he came back here. He went to Stapleton. That was his love. Oh, he loved Stapleton. He loved the children.
But Valdez had some challenges too. He pleaded guilty to criminally negligent homicide for a 2017 car accident on Long Island that killed a 16-year-old student. He was fined $2,500 or 1 year in prison and ordered to pay the 16-year-old's mother $10,000 in compensation. Prosecutors appealed that sentence, calling it lenient. His sister says the situation was difficult for him.
I guess if you have an accident, it'll be tough on anybody, but like I said, he did not give up on life. He still pursued. And guess what, if you met him, he was like he always had a good word for you. He always encouraged the young people. He was a happy guy.
Rolls says her brother loved working with the children at the Stapleton School and was entrusted as caretaker during the school's long closure. His older brother, James Pratt, hoping for an end to the family's New Year's nightmare.
Right now, I'm praying and hoping that we come to some conclusion and closure of it. In the meantime, I have to go with what I have to go with, nothing else.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
Thanks, Jared. Well, it's the first full week of the new year. Here's Greg Thompson in our weather studio with tonight's outlook.
Thanks, Christina. I'm meteorologist Greg Thompson with your first look at weather. Current conditions outside our studios. Frontal boundary now pushing in, so we have some partly cloudy skies with just a few sprinkles of showers out there. Temperatures are in the mid-70s, 75 degrees. Your winds out of the southwest at 8 knots. Feels like temperature in the mid-70s. Satellite view, frontal boundary now limping into the northwest Bahamas. Not really doing much, but we do have some clouds associated with it, as well as some showers along its boundary. That frontal boundary will continue to push towards the south tonight through tomorrow. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come, the new year brings new challenges for some students, plus crime trending downward on Grand Bahama. Stay tuned.
This year has been hard on all of us. Many have lost friends and loved ones to COVID-19, which has changed the world and the way we live. From the first case to the second wave, our news has been there with you, and we will continue to stand with you this holiday season,
sharing in your stories of tragedy and triumph. Christmas may look and feel very different this year, but its meaning of love and hope remains the same. From our family to yours, Merry Christmas and a safe and prosperous New Year.
It's back to square one for teachers as thousands of students across the country head back to virtual school. That according to Bahama's Union of Teachers President Belinda Wilson, who says students, teachers, and parents were shocked this morning when they attempted to access the one-on-one LMS platform and received error messages.
When will this fiasco end? While the Ministry of Education is pretending that there is a functional virtual platform, and falsely claiming that thousands of students are online learning. It's hyped up. And sadly, the children of our nation continue to have their educational experience negatively impacted.
Wilson says these are the same issues teachers were faced with back in March 2020. Now in 2021, Wilson says it's time for the Ministry of Education to take responsibility.
The Ministry of Education needs to tell the country the truth about the myriad of issues associated with the LMS and the EMS. The only way these problems are going to be resolved is if and when the Ministry of Education admits that there are major problems with this platform and seek the solutions from the proper sources, such as their stakeholders.
In-person learning could resume at public schools across the country as early as next month, and education officials say they are still deciding which method of learning will be implemented at individual schools.
Our hope is that somewhere in February that we would be able to go to face-to-face. It is anticipated that over the next week or so we will have a clearer picture of the consequence of this past holiday in terms of COVID cases and its impact on the healthcare system. And once that is assessed by the competent authority and the Ministry of Health officials, then the Ministry of Education will be properly advised in terms of those islands that now do not have the benefit of face-to-face.
And a group of Bahamian fishermen is coming to the defense of their foreign counterparts in the industry, who government is seeking to ban. Jared Higgs has more.
Every foreign fisherman which you stop a Bahamian from working too.
44-year-old Dale Sweeting is a Bahamian fisherman and father of a 1-year-old baby. He says if government's Fisheries Bill 2020 becomes law, preventing foreign fishermen from taking part in the industry, he'll suffer.
I have to pay my rent. I have to pay cable bill. I have to pay light bill. The government can pay that for me. That's my problem. That's one side. Where the government could find $2,000 something a month to pay my bills.
Dozens of Bahamian and foreign fishermen, along with their families, gathered to show their opposition to government's plans to prevent foreign fishermen from participating in the commercial fishing sector. They say, contrary to popular belief, many Bahamian fishermen, especially black ones, rely on Dominican fishermen.
The Dominicans, they 10 times better than Bahamian divers. I ain't gonna lie. I was a Bahamian too. What the Dominicans can bring in, they can bring in 10 times more than what a Bahamian can bring in.
They bring skilled labor. And I just want to clear the air with a lot of this misinformation, which is being said that we're looking at for cheap labor, and that's totally not the case. Everybody gets paid upon what they catch.
Another accusation is that non-national fishermen who are fishing legally are helping poachers. But Stephen Green, a captain, says that's not true about the guys working for him.
I have some Dominican on my boat. Even them, I see poachers on the sea. Even when I see the poachers, they tell me call the defense force for them. So they work here, they live here, they got a family here, they paying the bill.
Another complaint from other fishermen is that their lobster traps are interfered with. Unlike the other accusations, Green owns up to this one, admitting that, at least he, engaged in the controversial practice. It's often blamed on poachers, but Green says anything thrown in the ocean is fair game.
I think they'll say that you're stealing. What do you
Yeah, that's what they're saying, we're stealing, but I ain't actually stealing. You see, that's like I told you before, if you throw 25 cents in the water and you leave it, you can't come out and say that's yours because someone else can come and find it.
A group comprising of 6 Bahamian fishing companies, foreign fishermen and their wives has threatened to take legal action if the bill isn't put on hold and they aren't consulted on the matter. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
Thanks, Jared. Coming up, Grand Bahama sees a double-digit decrease in murders. Stay with us.
This year has been hard on all of us. Many have lost friends and loved ones to COVID-19, which has changed the world and the way we live. From the first case to the second wave, our news has been there with you, and we will continue to stand with you this holiday season,
sharing in your stories of tragedy and triumph. Christmas may look and feel very different this year, but its meaning of love and hope remains the same. From our family to yours, Merry Christmas and a safe and prosperous New Year.
This is Our News. Welcome back. A proactive policing plan and aggressive patrol operations continue to top the agenda for Grand Bahama in 2021, according to Assistant Commissioner Ashton Greenslade, who says 2020 crime figures show a decrease in overall crime on that island. Jillian Gray tells us more.
Crime is down on Grand Bahama, according to Assistant Commissioner of Police Ashton Greenslade, who said 2020 figures show a downward turn in certain categories. The island saw a 29% decrease in murders in 2020. 10 murders were recorded last year compared to 14 murders in 2019.
I'm quite certain that crime is down here in Grand Bahama. And when the Commissioner meets with the press in a couple of days, you'll see the stats and see the results. And we're going to continue in that vein in 21. We'll continue to ensure that the residents of Grand Bahama, Abaco, and Bimini remain safe.
Working with youth, community policing, and traffic stops are all on the agenda to continue to stave off crime, according to Greenslade, who said in 2020 they ran a series of operations, which he chalks up to the reason for the decrease in crime.
Executing search warrants for firearms, dangerous drugs, visibility on road checks, what you would refer to as roadblocks, road checks, stop and search, and it worked well for us. And I believe that is the reason for crime being down in Grand Bahama.
For the Grand Bahama community, traffic accidents have been a major problem. In December, an 11-year-old girl was the 11th traffic fatality for that island. Greenslade said there are simply too many traffic accidents, and they'll be stepping up their game to help in that area as well.
I think we lost far too many lives on the streets in Grand Bahama, and we're being proactive with that. As we speak, we have some initiatives in place, and we'll continue in that vein throughout the year. We, as you know, as you're aware, you live here in Grand Bahama, you see we are active on the streets of Grand Bahama, enforcing the traffic rules and laws, and we'll continue in that regard to ensure that persons don't drive reckless, don't drive fast in excess of the speed limit, and drive with due care and attention.
He added that if they will be successful in reducing the number of traffic accidents, they'll need the help of the public. Reporting for our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
Tonight in sports, some of the country's top basketball players kicking off the new year in style. Here's Marcellus Hall.
All right, thanks, Christina. Welcome to our sports, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. Our first look at sports in 2021. And what better way to start than taking a look at some of our top basketball players in the country. They include Kai Jones and DeAndre Ayton and the Phoenix Suns on the floor last night against the LA Clippers. Suns getting off to a rough start. They trailed by as many as 31 points before making a bit of a comeback, cutting the lead to 2 points. On the way to coming up short, losing 112 to 107. Ayton with a solid performance, finished with 24 points. He shot 9 of 12 from the floor. He would add 8 rebounds and 2 assists. Suns now 5-2 on the season. Their next game versus the Raptors on Wednesday. From the collegiate ranks, Kai Jones and the 8th-ranked Texas Longhorns taking on 3rd-ranked Kansas on Saturday. Longhorns getting it done. They took it to Jayhawks with a dominating performance. Texas with the blowout win, 84-59. Kai Jones showing the versatility, knocking down a couple of threes. Also had some in-close baskets as well, a dunk and a layup. Finished up with 12 points, 5 rebounds, and a steal. Texas now 8-1. They'll play Iowa State tomorrow. And that's your check on sports here on this Monday. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Marcellus. Well, how does it feel to be one of the Queen's New Year honorees? That's coming up when our news returns.
This year has been hard on all of us. Many have lost friends and loved ones to COVID-19, which has changed the world and the way we live. From the first case to the second wave, our news has been there with you, and we will continue to stand with you this holiday season,
sharing in your stories of tragedy and triumph. Christmas may look and feel very different this year, but its meaning of love and hope remains the same. From our family to yours, Merry Christmas and a safe and prosperous New Year.
Welcome back to our news. Our temperature is cooling down again. Here's Greg Thompson back in the weather studio.
Thanks again, Christina, and a Happy New Year to everybody. Second look at weather tonight, we take a look at our satellite view around the area. We have that front boundary, very weak one, pushing into the northwest Bahamas with some cloudiness associated with it, as well as some showers. Front should move into the central Bahamas later tonight and into tomorrow, and move into the southeast Bahamas by Wednesday. Behind that, high pressure will build in, generating some nice breezes before we get another front by the weekend. Boating forecast for the northwest and central Bahamas tonight to tomorrow. Southwesterly winds ahead of that front, but once the front goes through, northwest and north winds 10 to 15 knots, seas 2 to 4. While the southeast Bahamas, your winds will be southeast to south at 10 to 15 knots, seas 2 to 4 feet. Your high tide will be at 11:59 tonight. Here's a look now at your national forecast. Now we'll look at your extended forecast through Saturday. Once again, Happy New Year, everybody. Make it a great night. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Greg. The Queen's New Year honors for 2021 were released over the weekend, with 2 honorees receiving the Queen's Police Medal. Assistant Commissioner of Police Ashton Greenslade says he is honored to receive the medal. Greenslade, who heads the Northern Division, thanked God, family, and his staff, who've all contributed to his success.
I would like to thank God first. I would like to thank my family. To thank all of my staff, the staff here in Grand Bahama, Abaco, and Bimini. It goes to show you that with hard work and dedication, you reap good dividends.
Thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Christina Dragovich. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas.